and welcome to our fourth episode of CU Faith Fridays. Today we have with us Molly Heller, who's a senior at Caldwell. Molly, thanks for joining us today.
Very, very happy to be here.
Excellent. Um, so as you know, our setup for CU Faith Fridays is every week we try to highlight a student at Caldwell University who is doing amazing things and has a story to share, especially around the COVID-19 pandemic right now. So, the first question we'll ask Molly, as always, we like to start off with an introduction. So, Molly, what can you tell us about yourself that would help us get to know you a little bit better?
So, I'm currently in my senior year, like you said. I'm studying elementary and education and social studies for my undergrad, for my bachelor's degree, and I'm in the combined 5-year program. So, I'll be back at Caldwell next year for my master's in curriculum and instruction and my special ed endorsement. And yeah, I've been a commuter all 4 years and been very, very involved on campus, even though I drive back and forth every day.
That's awesome. I'm sure our commuter students that are watching this, I think it's always a little more challenging to be involved when you're a commuter student. So, what are some of the things that you've been involved in on campus that you've really kind of taken leadership roles in?
So, over the past 4 years, my biggest leadership role has been a student ambassador in the admissions office, working in the office and giving tours. It's one of my favorite jobs ever. I've been involved in campus ministry through the midnight runs, readings at Mass, and the first program. And I've also been on the executive board of 2 different clubs, and I've worked as an orientation leader and a peer tutor in the tutoring center. So I've just been all over campus doing so much.
That's great. So it sounds like you really haven't held back at all in terms of kind of just embracing all that Caldwell has had to offer you.
Oh yeah, no, I would always be there on campus more than I was in my own house.
That's great. That's great. Um, okay, so you mentioned being involved in campus ministry a little bit. So I'd love to talk to you about what you have been involved in. I don't know where you'd like to start with that, but yeah, so you mentioned a few things, but what are some of the other things and how did you start getting involved in campus ministry?
So my schedule has always been like really difficult for me to be heavily involved in campus ministry. I couldn't be doing as much as I wanted to, but when I could, I was able to do the midnight run with you guys. I worked with you for the first program for the incoming freshmen this past summer. I like to volunteer to read at masses, to help out at masses, and even just go when I can. But the biggest thing I've been involved with is campus ministry is the RCIA program, which I completed with you junior year.
Great, that's great. And for our readers, our listeners who don't know, RCIA is the program. It stands for Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. So it's anyone who's, I guess, past the age of 7 or 8 years old and would like to either be baptized, receive First Communion and confirmation, or any of those three sacraments that they have not received yet. So yes, Molly did participate in that program. Molly, can you I guess talk a little bit about how you decided to do the RCIA program. Where'd that desire come from for you?
So my religious history is a little bit of like a roller coaster. Growing up, my family and I, we were very, very devout Catholics. We would go to church every week. I made all of my sacraments up to confirmation. I got my baptism. I made my Holy Communion. I did all the rites of penance and everything. But then sophomore year was like a double fault. The first was my parents stopped taking us to church every week because they were having issues with our CCD instructor, and they had like a conflict of interest with like some of the church's beliefs and practices, and they wanted to give my sister and myself the option, the freedom to choose whatever path we wanted to. If we wanted to stay in the Catholic Church, we could always go back. If we wanted to branch out and go to a different religion, they didn't want to take that option away from us by making us go to church at the Catholic Church every week. And personally, I stayed away for at least 5 years at that point because of severe medical issues that really I'm trying to think of the word, affected my relationship with God because when I was 16, I put all the blame for what was happening to me on him. So I kind of just I strayed away from religion, but then at the end of my sophomore year, I realized that this was not a life that I wanted to keep living anymore. That absence that I was feeling, that loneliness, I realized it was that absence of faith that I didn't have, that absence of hope. So I made the decision to go through the RCIA program to get confirmed in the Catholic Church to fill that void that I had been missing and realizing that I can put my faith and trust in God and that He will have things work out the way they should for me.
That's great. That's really profound. I think that's a common struggle for everyone. I was going to say college students, but I think everyone in our lives, um, you know, uh, understand or will struggle in their relationship with God in some way. So, what has life or your faith been like for you since the RCIA process? I know that was almost exactly a year ago that you
Yeah.
were confirmed. So, what has life been like for you? How has your faith been different since then?
I feel like because a year ago yesterday was when my confirmation happened. I remember it just like it did happen yesterday. And I remember waking up that next morning and feeling like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. I just felt new and refreshed, and all of the pain and worry and anger that I've been holding on to for so long wasn't there anymore. And that's how it's still been for the past year. I felt more connected with myself, with God, with everyone in my life because I finally opened my heart up to Him. And that's allowed me to finally be like secure and confident and trusting that he has a plan for me and that it's all everything is working out the way that it's supposed to, and it's led me to the place where I am today. So I'm extremely grateful for what RCIA did for me and how it brought me back to my relationship with him.
That's awesome. Let's talk about kind of the past few weeks when it comes to faith.
Mm.
So, um, beginning of March, great. Then this pandemic hit. What has
Ugh.
your faith been like during the COVID-19 pandemic and quarantine?
I will be honest, it was shaken up a little bit because I'm scared for everyone in the world right now. I'm trying to understand how this could all happen and so fast, and just seeing how everyone is being negatively affected by this pandemic and how quarantine the impact it's having on so many people in so many different ways. It shook me a little bit. I
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes it's like, oh, there's not much more to say about that. It's just challenging, and it's hard to find ways to notice where God is showing up in our lives these days. We sometimes we have to look a lot harder. Um, are there any ways for you that you do feel like God has shown up for you in this pandemic?
Yes, so I mean, I'm a person who likes to have everything very planned out and very concrete and very set in stone. I'm just like that's just how I roll. I'm not always comfortable with spontaneous or sudden changes, so this was a very hard adjustment for me, but I know that God is still working his plan for me because I've still been able to do my student teaching, and I start my first maternity teaching job Friday morning. So that was able to still happen even though I wasn't in the building with my kids and being with my teachers, but still being able to do what I love in this pandemic shows me that he's still working his whatever he's doing up there.
Yeah, yeah. We don't always know, right?
Yes.
Um, Student teaching, that's kind of crazy to
Mm.
get this get this experience of the first part of the semester being able to do your student teaching in person, like almost every other college student gets a chance to do, and now you've had to switch to this virtual learning. Um, what has that been like? What has it been like student teaching during this pandemic?
It's very strange and stressful a lot of days. I it's been 7.5 weeks since we started our remote learning for our kids, and everyone's adapted very well to it. But I belong in a classroom. I can't keep teaching from my desk in my bedroom every day. It's a lot. I miss being with the kids because learning through home is not the same as if you were in the classroom and working with the teachers, and you have more time and you get to talk to each other and they get to be with their friends. And for me, I love my students more than anything in the world. So I get to see them every day through like Zoom and Google Hangouts and Google Meets, but it's nowhere near the same as if we were in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What would you say have been some of the fruits of your time student teaching?
Oh, where do I start with that? That's a good question. Um, just the I guess to start, the experience that I've gotten. I'm at my elementary school that I graduated from almost 11 years ago now with my 5th grade teacher from when I was in 5th grade, and just having the experience, and she's the flexibility and creativity that I've been given in the classroom is probably the biggest fruit because it's shaping me into the teacher that I've wanted to be for so long. And another thing would probably be the relationships with my students because you hear stories about teachers not being able to connect or bond with specific students. I have 70 of them and I've connected with almost all of them. So they are my pride and joy and they are like my own kids, even though I'm only 22 when I say that. But they are my world, and they made going to the classroom they still make going to remote learning really fun and really exciting, and I know that I've made a real connection with them, and that's been one of the best parts about student teaching.
Yeah, and I'm sure, from what you say, that you're back at the school that you went to when you were in elementary school. I'm sure, in a sense, it feels like you're coming home. There's that familiarity with that. And so it's great to hear that you've made a connection with the students as well. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about prayer because I know during the pandemic and all that's going on right now, prayer is such an integral part of what kind of can hold us together as communities, as people of faith. Talk about your own prayer. Do you have a favorite way to pray or a way that you feel like works best to kind of keep your relationship with God connected?
Yeah, so I try to pray every night in depth. Like I usually have a list of people and things that I pray for first, and eventually I get to myself and what I want to talk to him about. But I also take it as a very like conversational approach almost. I like just sitting on my bedroom floor and kind of just like talking as if he was there because that's how I feel most comfortable doing it. I just feel like that's how I connect with him more because I'm a very social and people person. I like conversations. So I didn't want to change that when it comes to my prayer because if I tried it and it didn't feel as natural, it didn't feel as right. So I just like to imagine having that conversation with him while also adoring and professing my love and faith for him every day.
That's great. Just being yourself, right? That's really
Yeah.
what that relationship with God is still about. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be something far away or distant or difficult to manage, but really just like that best friend relationship. And it sounds like that's what it is for you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Good, good. Um, so do you have any suggestions for others who are at home right now trying to figure out their own prayer life or their own faith life, or might feel like they find themselves in a little bit of a struggle understanding who God is for them in their life? What would you say to them?
Whew. I would say just take it gradually. Don't try to force anything that's not there yet. So I remember when I was struggling to find my connection with God again, it took me months to really get into my prayers that I am now. So I think just being gradual, opening up little bit by little bit, doing what you're comfortable with at the time, and the more often you do that, the more comfortable you will be. with your prayers, and yeah, just do it at your own pace. Don't try to force anything, don't try to rush anything. Speak about how much or how little you want to address. It's all an individual pace, and there's no wrong way to go about it.
That's awesome. And what about someone who may be considering going through the RCIA process? What might you say to them?
It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Those sessions really did end up changing my life for the better. And it was just working like with you and Dr. Cimarelli, where it was always a lot of fun. And just the end result of RCIA, it's you come out, hopefully you come out feeling new and refreshed, knowing that you have that relationship permanently established with God. And it was life changing for me. And I hope that other people who do partake in RCIA can have a similar or their own unique experience with it.
Great, excellent, excellent. Any final thoughts or closing thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Stay safe, stay healthy. I know that I'm getting very stir crazy in quarantine right now. So I hopefully for everyone we get to go back to our daily routines soon. But until then, hang in there.
Hang in there, indeed. Yes. We're
Hang
all in
in
this
there.
together, that is for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, I just want to thank our listeners for watching this episode of CU Faith Fridays, and I want to thank Molly for being with us today and really kind of digging deep into her faith life and sharing some thoughts with us. So we really appreciate that. So thank you, Molly,
Thank you
and
for having me.
you're welcome. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Tune in next week for our fifth episode of CU Faith Fridays.